Have you ever felt like you're falling behind in the beginning of the school year? That self-doubt can creep in because you're not following your schedule to a T just yet. Do you feel like you should be further along than you are? Or maybe you're feeling pressure to start teaching academic content like the alphabet. I've been getting a lot of emails from teachers who are feeling this way lately. So in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my faves and fails when it comes to teaching the alphabet in the beginning of the school year. So if you want to avoid the pitfalls, stick around until the very end because I'll be sharing a freebie bundle with you to help you get started in your own classroom. But first things first, you do have an alphabet or literacy center in your classroom, right? Good, I thought so. I wanted to show you my very favorite Alphabet Center materials and activities to put out in the very beginning of the school year in a pre-K 4 classroom. So first up is alphabet fishing. And my kids have always loved alphabet fishing because it's hands-on, fun, and playful. And here you can see on the screen, these fishing rods I have, these really cool ones here, are from Lakeshore from several years ago. Now they changed their styles quite a bit. So yours, if you have them from Lakeshore, might look different than mine, and that's okay. Most importantly, what I like about them is that the magnet is really strong. So there is no question that you're always going to catch something whenever your kids go fishing. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, this particular set has lowercase letters. In the beginning of the year, I would probably feature uppercase letters, but to be honest, most kids are probably not even looking at the letters at this point, and that's okay, right? If you're wondering how to get your hands on a set of uppercase, stay tuned until the very end because I'll be sharing with you the freebie bundle, which includes printable fish that you can type your own letters into. So you can choose the case and then you can attach washers to the back of those and then laminate them so you don't have to worry about the paper clips falling off or anything like that. But what I want to say about alphabet fishing is that it does not matter if your kids are 3, 4, 5, or even 6, they all love alphabet fishing. I have had many, many classes over the years and many, many kids, and this is a staple in our literacy center all year long. Now, you can, of course, extend the learning. You can create like recording sheets and fun games and so forth. But in the beginning of the year, it's really all about using the fishing pole to catch these fish. It's playful, it's hands-on, it's fun and engaging, and it even engages 3, 4, 5, and up to 6-year-olds I've used it with. I don't know about 2s, but they love it. Now, these particular fishing poles in this set, remember, came from Lakeshore, but you can easily make your own using a dowel. A dowel is a stick from the craft store, right? And then I just attached a piece of yarn onto the end of the dowel, and then I hot glued a button magnet. I know some of you are not able to or don't feel safe using button magnets, and so this set from Lakeshore is a must-have if you have the budget for it. I don't work with Lakeshore at all. I just like some of their products. Some of their products are, they're very sturdy. They last a long time. And when you have classes that are large year after year, you really need things like that are durable and can withstand the test of time in a very busy pre-K classroom. So that's the first one, is alphabet fishing. That is a win for everybody, hands down. You can do it on the first day of school if you want without much instruction other than we have to share the fishing poles. And they get it, they understand it, and they can just take the fish off the hook and put them back in the bucket, or however you have it laid out in your room. So I really like it because it's very simple. It doesn't require a lot of explanation, and your kids will love it. So that's one of my favorite go-tos for the beginning of the year. Now, next up, for those of you watching along, I'll show this on the screen, but letter matching mats. These don't have to be fancy. You can even make your own. It doesn't have to be super fancy. I've even traced them with a pencil before. You can use this sun-bleached mat, and we will put a link to this DIY for you in the show notes below, or you can go to Pre-K Pages and type letter matching mat into the search box. And the great thing about letter matching mats is you're not worried about whether they are learning the letters at this point in the school year. What you want is for them to have something hands-on, to put their hands on, to start getting a feel for the shape of the letters. And they're going to start practicing visual discrimination when they do this letter matching on their mats. And I love it because it gives me a very informal, quick assessment of how well or how familiar my students are with the letters of the alphabet. So super easy to get out, easy to put away and clean up. Very little explanation needed. So you see, we're on a theme here. These are great beginning of the year activities. You can worry about the alphabet and all the other things later, but first you need to get those routines and procedures in place. And these types of fun and playful activities are the way to do that. So next up, we have my Chicka Chicka Boom Boom tree. And if it's looking a little rough when you see it on the screen, if you're watching along, that's because it is very, very old and well loved. But this, if you want to know how to make your own magnetic Chicka Chicka Boom Boom tree, then we'll put a link in the show notes. That's right below this video. If you're watching, you might have to click on the little word more to expand the box and see the links. And if you're listening along, just type Chicka Chicka Boom Boom tree into the search box at Pre-K Pages and it will pop right up. But essentially, it is 2 large metal coffee cans or any kind of other metallic can taped together. And then I've covered it with wood grain contact paper, which they usually sell at the Dollar Tree and I believe Dollar General for a very cheap price. This particular tree is more than 10 years old. I used to have a nicer one that I would travel with when I was on the speaking circuit, but it died a horrible death in an airport, and I never made another one. But I did freshen up the leaves in the top. And these leaves in the top are from a fake plant that I also got at a dollar store. I don't remember which one. I think it's actually a couple of these little fake fern plants. But this is the magnetic alphabet tree. Obviously, I have it laying on its side to show you on the top-down camera. But after I read the story aloud, then I will show them how to use the tree. I might even, on the second read of the day or the next day, I might even use the letters during the read aloud demo for them and then invite them up to listen for a couple of letters and then put them on the tree as they hear them in the story. And then the next day, after I've done that, I will put this out in my ABC Center along with a copy of the book so they can put their own letters on the tree and that the book will serve as a scaffold to support them while they do this. And so this would be a retelling activity. But yeah, it's really more of an oral language retelling activity in the beginning of the year than it is a tool for teaching. Any letter learning that takes place during this activity is just a bonus, in my opinion. And I like this activity because, again, the book serves as a scaffold for their play. And I definitely do this with the kids. Like I said, I demo it with them and invite a few to put some letters on the tree while I'm reading the book aloud before putting it out for that independent practice. And we'll talk more about how I do the independent practice portion a little bit later in the episode. But this activity is high interest. It's very fun, and they definitely don't have one of these at home. Now, I also have recording sheets that go along with this, but I would not use them the first few weeks of school because then you're going to need to teach them how to use the bingo dauber, how to take the cap off, how to put the cap on, how to dab it instead of scrape it across the paper. You're going to have to teach them what to do with the paper when they're done, where to put the bingo dauber when they're done. Do you see where I'm going? You have to teach them so much more to use the recording sheet. I would rather spend the time getting them used to the routines and the procedures in the classroom, how to clean up, how to get things out, how to put them away, when to put them away, all of that. That is my focus in the beginning of the year. The learning will come later, and the learning will come more easily if they have those routines and procedures down pat. So just focus on making school fun, playful, and enjoyable in the beginning of the year. So next up are big chunky alphabet beads. As you can see here, these are some great big beads. They're not a choking hazard. They're fairly large. They have both upper and lowercase letters on them. So don't worry. We're just exposing kids. We're not expecting them to learn these right now. So don't worry about that part. But what I like is that they're getting some exposure to the letters, and you can actually, name them out. You can give them a name card. You can ask them to look for letters in their name. Absolutely do not expect them to put them in order in the beginning of the year. That would be an unrealistic expectation, but they can try and string them on. And what they'll probably do is string on a bunch of random letters. And this string is really, really long, as you can see. So they just like to string letters until it's completely full. And that's okay in the beginning of the year, because my goal isn't to teach them all the letters those first few weeks of school. My goal is to get them to understand how to use materials that are in the classroom, and eventually we're going to use these materials for more learning and just get some exposure to letters here. And some of your kids might know a few letters, and they can look for the ones they know and say, hey, I know that one. That's in my brother Timothy's name or whatever. So don't expect them to be making their name, but you can give them a name card just to expose them to their name. You can invite them to do it, and you might have some kids who can, but I wouldn't make it an expectation. And we are just introducing these beads to our kids as a small group activity. Don't put this out until you have showed them how to use it specifically. Otherwise, the rope becomes, or the string, the shoelace becomes a lasso. You'll also notice here that there is a knot in the end. If you do not put the knot, you're setting everybody up for failure, because they will string them on and they will fall right off onto the floor, and we don't want that, right? I really like these beads because they're hands-on, obviously. They're nice and big, so they don't pose a choking hazard. They're easy to get out and put on the table and easy to put away. This is really more about the fine motor than alphabet. In the beginning of the year, it doesn't even need to be introduced in a small group, although you can. I show it to the class. I demo how it works, right? These are alphabet beads. Look, they have something in the sides. What is that? Look at that. If I stick the string through the end, watch this, then it will come out the other side. They're lacing beads. That's right. And then I can put the beads and I demo it, right? And I show them. Now, do the beads go on the table or whatever surface you're using? Or do we put them on the floor? Should we let them fall on the floor? Oh, that's right. They're going to stay right wherever you want them to stay. And are we going to put these beads in our pocket? No, if we put the beads in our pocket, then we won't have any beads to play with anymore. So we want to keep the beads at school for everyone to play with. For little kids, this isn't stealing. They don't know how these things work. They've only had their own toys. If this is their first school experience. So I just demo that because every year, without fail, I have a couple of kids who decide to take some of the smaller items home in their pockets. That just tells me they really like what we're learning at school. I don't go into a big detailed thing. So letter beads, easy to use. Once you do that kind of quick introduction, they're good to go. And then once they're used to using these things, then you can use them for other more advanced learning, right? I'm more focused about keeping the beads on the table and cleaning up than I am about any letter learning in the beginning of the year. That may or may not happen those first few weeks. Now, I did want to say something about letter beads, because some of you might be thinking, well, I like to put those in my fine motor tubs or center or whatever. And the thing about fine motor in the early childhood classroom in pre-K is that you don't need a specific fine motor center. You don't need to have fine motor as a portion of your daily schedule. The way we teach fine motor skills, and those are the little muscles in the hands and fingers that children are going to use to eventually write, Those types of fine motor activities are embedded into everything we do every single day. So letter beads are perfect for fine motor development, right? And we know that our kids need a lot of that. So we're going to use things a lot like stringing beads or using Mr. Potato Head or using Lego, anything that's going to require the use of the small muscles in their hands and fingers. We're going to use all throughout the year in many different ways, right? So we don't need to chunk that out into a separate fine motor time, if you will, because everything we do in early childhood is all about developing all of their muscles and their early thinking skills and everything. And fine motor is just a part of everything we do. So I don't have a dedicated fine motor time during the day. So next up, we are going to talk all about wiki sticks. So here are the wiki sticks. These are fantastic for the beginning of the school year. You can use them all year long for many different things. They are strings that have been dipped in wax, and that renders the string bendable. Check it out. So all you have to do is put some letters out. You've written them on a piece of paper with a Sharpie, or you print them out, whatever you want, and invite the kids to stick the letters to the paper, or stick the wiki sticks rather to the paper to make the letters. Now, obviously, I've chosen probably one of the easiest letters to make with wiki sticks here with the letter T, but super fun for kids. So you can just put out some letters that you've written on paper with a Sharpie and give your kids a bunch of wiki sticks, and they can use the wiki sticks to create the letters on the paper. Again, this is not about in the beginning of the year. It's not about learning to identify the letters. It's more about exposure and making things fun, playful, and tactile. And of course, as they are making their letters, right? Let's say I'm pretending to make an S here. They're exercising some fine motor skills. And usually what happens is after they do a few letters, I let them start creating, or I invite them to rather start creating other things. They can make little people out of these. They can do all kinds of things. So here is a little head with arms. Like, how many wiki sticks do you need to make the legs for your person? Oh, now you need a body, and so forth. And so they can make little pictures, and they're great for your tactile learners because they have to use those senses, those nerve endings in their fingers to feel things. And we know that's a multisensory learning experience too. Later on in the year, I will use these to reinforce the letters and all of that. But in the beginning of the year, I'm just giving them some exposure and having something fun and playful for them to use, and introducing them to the tool of what a wiki stick is. And that's WIKKI STIX. That's the brand name. Sometimes you'll see them under other names, and sometimes they do have them at the dollar stores. I have seen them at Target before. I haven't seen them lately. Don't go running out to look for them. I've also seen them at, I think, Dollar General, maybe under the name Benderoos. And of course, you can always order them on Amazon. So this next activity requires very little explanation or instruction on the teacher's part, yet it is super high interest for your kids. And it is these letter roads, whatever you want to call them, highway letters, whatever your preferred way of calling them is. But these are little letters on a piece of paper. Now you could print these smaller if this is too big for you, but print them out. And then I just found these little cars at the party store. I'll set them down here for those of you watching so it will focus. Little cars I found at the party store, like Party City. And sometimes you can find them in the birthday party section at Target or Walmart. And I just used a Sharpie and I wrote the letters of the alphabet on the tops of the cars. So I have 26 cars. I probably have a few extra because sometimes if you have a lot of kids who start with the same letter, they might fight over the cars. If there's only one letter A and you have an Angel and an Alexandra and Alessandra, all the other A names. So anyway, we have these cars, we have these mats. I'm showing you one that's not laminated because it will glare, as you can see. If you're watching along, it does. So this is an unlaminated one, but I do recommend laminating them because they get heavy, heavy use all year long. So once you have them, all you have to do is show children the cars and explain that these are the roads and ask them if they can drive the cars on the roads. And now if you're going to do this in a small group, which is fine, I've done this in a small group in the beginning of the year. It's very easy. I just show them how they can drive the cars. And then I'll say something like, oh, I wonder what letter that is. Did you know that's your C? That's Carolina's first letter. Carolina starts with the letter C, and this car also has your letter on it. That's C for Carolina. And then I'm also going to have to do a little demo of how we share letters, because if you have another child in your classroom that also starts with C, like Carlos or Carmen or Caden or any of the other C names, you're going to have to explain that, yes, this is Carolina's C, but she has to share it with Caden and Carlos and so forth. So anyway, once you show them how to do this, they get the hang of it really quick. Again, very little explanation. You just want to remind them the cars stay in the whatever, whether it's on the table or in the area or on the mats, whatever it is. And these cars are special. They go with these mats, and we don't want to lose any of the cars, do we? So we want to make sure they stay on the table and they don't go in our pockets, right? Because these are special cars that we only use at school. And that's the extent of it. And now the kids can easily dump the cars back in the bucket, and I just have them stick the mats right in there. And you can, show them where they go on the shelf. Each end of the tub is labeled, and now there's a label on the shelf. So they simply put the bucket of cars and cards back on the table. And if you want to limit the number of alphabet mats you have out, that's perfectly fine. Do whatever works for you. So if you're working in a small group with 5 kids, you might want to just select the mats that have their first letters of their name on it. It's really up to you. I find that having all 26 letter mats out in the beginning of the year is a little too much. It's not necessary for our small groups. And so I gradually work up to all the letters of the alphabet. So once I've introduced this in a small group, then it's going to go into my ABC Center. And last but not least of my favorites to put out in my Alphabet Center in the beginning of the school year are letter building mats. And so here, if you're watching along on the screen, these letter building mats are from Lakeshore. Now, what we know about Lakeshore is they like to change their styles and their colors and all of that frequently. So these are from a few years ago. What they have right now might look a little different. That's okay because they serve the exact same function. So what we have here are a bunch of alphabet mats. It says letter builder at the top. And then you get a bunch of curved wooden shapes. And yes, I know there's a proprietary curriculum out there that uses a similar technique. This, for me, was more affordable. So you do you. And if you have a crafty significant other, maybe they could cut some of these shapes out for you. I have no such thing in my life, so I just bought the set. I think it's worth an investment. These are wood, so they're going to last a while. And these mats are really thick, shiny, like pre-laminated cardboard. And again, I don't have any affiliation with Lakeshore. I just really, really like some of their products due to their durability. They're very durable. So you can see here, if you're watching along, I'm just using these little strips of wood. We've got straight pieces, long pieces, short pieces, and curvy pieces. And we've even got some small curvy ones and some larger curvy ones. And all you have to do is show the kids how to build the letters on the mat. And again, it's not about learning letters at this point in the year. It's more about how to use the materials, how to get them out, how to use them properly, and how to put them away again. So we're just introducing them to the routine of using materials in centers. And if there's some children who already know letters, this is going to be helpful because it will be a model for those of your students who do not know any letters. And you can see I chose one of the easiest letters here. If you're watching along, the letter L, and some of them, obviously, they get more involved because not all letters are just sticks, right? We've got some that have sharp curves, like the letter P. And so here they can make the letter P. And this is a very powerful learning tool for kids because they're touching and feeling the shape of the letters. And you can be there in small group when you're introducing it, showing them how it's a straight line and a curvy line. That's the most important thing that we're going to want to get out of this later is the shape of the letters, right? Because as kids touch, feel, and manipulate the shape of the letters, they're going to be more able to quickly store that information in their long-term memory. It's a multisensory approach because they can see it, they can feel it, they can touch it, and all of that good stuff. Well, are you ready to see my beginning of the year alphabet fails? I thought so. So first things first, let me just start by saying that it is possible to do some of these things in the beginning of the year, not all of them, with a lot of patience and practice. I choose not to do these things in the very beginning of the year because my time, in my opinion, is much better spent establishing the classroom routines and procedures rather than policing the use of materials that are kind of tricky and they involve a little more effort on the part of the students to follow the routine. So these are alphabet stamps for those of you listening along. And here I have my alphabet stamps. Of course, I store them in the ice cube trays with the letter written in the bottom of each of the slots here, because that's going to be the easiest way and the least frustrating way for your kids to find the letters that they want, if there is a certain letter they want. And teaching them how to find the letter and put the letter back. That's one procedure you'll have to teach, right? You have to look for the letters that you want and put them back where they came from, right? Because in the beginning of the year, this is just going to turn into a big pile of alphabet stamps. The other thing you'll have to teach them is that the ink stays on the stamp. That is a really big challenge because chances are not all children will have had experience using an ink pad and stamps when they come to your classroom. So you're going to have to teach them that if you touch it, you will get ink on your hands. And to keep the ink on the stamp, that is the challenge. And then again, to put the stamp away. Now, even if you teach your heart out and you spend a whole day teaching them how to use these in the beginning of the year, they're still going to get ink all over themselves, all over the table, all over each other, all over their clothes. And I kind of like to ease parents into that kind of thing. You're also going to have to teach them how to clean up their hands when they're done, because this ink will leave ink on their fingers and their palms. Anytime they use alphabet stamps, their hands are going to get all messy. So you're going to have to teach that procedure in addition to just the procedures for using the stamps. So for that reason, as they say on Shark Tank, I'm out. And next up on the alphabet fails are letter locks. Now, don't get me wrong. I love letter locks. They're also from Lakeshore. Again, not sponsored. But they are not for the beginning of the year in pre-K. And here's a number of reasons why. Although they are super fun and engaging for kids to play with. Yes, that is true. They are not appropriate for the beginning of the year because, first of all, if we look at the lock, this particular one right here that I'm pointing to on the screen, if you're watching along, it's a picture of a sun on a big plastic lock. There is the uppercase S on the other side. And the goal is to unlock it by finding the key that has the same letter. Now, for some kids, they could be, if older kids, probably going to go sun, and then slip the thing in there, turn it, and then it opens, right? Now, this particular one here, if we're going to do the S, they look alike. So that's okay. Upper and lowercase do look alike for the letter S. They could match that one. Again, using a key and getting it into a lock at the beginning of the year for pre-K, No, big no, hands down. Sound the buzzer and the alarm. But what do we know about upper and lowercase letters? That they're not appropriate in the beginning of the year, because that is a whole other skill. Learning to match upper and lower comes much later. First, we have to match same to same. So if your kids were to do this, they would have to know how to match upper and lower and be working on beginning sounds. So for that reason, this is a big no in the beginning of the year. It is great for when your kids are ready to match upper and lower, and for your other kids to match beginning sounds, but not in the beginning of the year. And last but not least, for sure, there's lots of other things that are inappropriate in the beginning of the year, but this particular one doesn't work in the beginning of the year because it requires fine motor skills that your kids just don't have yet. And are things like locking cubes, or those really tight snap cubes. Or I have these dinosaurs. They're little dinosaurs. They're super cute. One half of the dinosaur has an uppercase letter. The other half has a lowercase. We just learned that that's not acceptable in the beginning of the year, but also they're very hard to pull apart and snap back together. Even when I use them later in the year, my kids sometimes still struggle, especially if they have weak fine motor skills. So I definitely don't choose to put those out in the beginning of the year for two reasons. So you have to put your beginning of the year goggles on, and you have to look and see, is this appropriate for the children that are entering my classroom, right? So if you teach pre-K 4, depending on where you live, what state you're in, or what licensing guidelines you follow, some of your children might be still 3 years old in the very beginning of the year, and they're just not ready for those really sophisticated concepts like matching upper to lower, matching letters to sounds, or really intricate fine motor stuff that they just can't handle, or a lot of extra steps, right? Now, when I say put these things out, I don't just put them on the shelves and expect the kids to pick them up and start playing with them appropriately. No, sir. That is not a realistic expectation when you've got things like blocks and sensory and dramatic play and all the other amazing things to choose from in your classroom. You see, I like to introduce some of these things to my students in small groups before I ever put them out in my ABC or literacy center. Listen, I don't care what it says on your schedule, because your schedule reflects what your day should look like, ideally, air quotes there. You will never accomplish everything on your daily schedule each day in the beginning of the school year. I don't recommend starting any small groups officially, formally, until you have rock solid routines and procedures firmly in place in your classroom. Now, episode 62 was all about setting up successful routines and procedures in your classroom. So if you missed it, go back and watch or listen to it as soon as you're done with this one. You see, there is a difference between doing something and doing something well. And it turns out if you start small groups too early in the school year, you're going to be setting your kids and yourself up for failure. Because if you don't have those routines and procedures firmly in place, then you and your kids are going to continue to struggle all year long. So let's take a deep breath in. Let it out. Slow down. It is not a race. Despite what anyone in administration tells you, it is not a race. We are all going to get to the finish line, or the end of the school year in this case, at the same time. But some of us will have a much easier time getting there than others. Which team do you want to be on? And I know I promised you some freebies in this episode. So if you look below this video, if you're watching along, look for the little description box, and it might say more. You might have to click on it to expand it. And there you'll find all the links that you'll need to go along with this episode. And you can grab your freebie bundle. There's 8 different alphabet activities. Some of them I covered today, some of them I did not. And they're included in that freebie bundle for you. And bonus, some of them are editable, meaning that you can change the letters. Not all of them, just some of them. And you can grab that and that link if you haven't already grabbed it already, because it's a freebie that I released last year. But because we have gained so many thousands of followers in the last year, many of you probably have not seen it yet. So if you haven't already grabbed it, it's the same as it was last year, but go ahead and get it this time. Just look below the video. If you're over at Pre-K Pages, in the search box, you can type alphabet freebie bundle into the search box and it will pop right up. And all you have to do is follow directions on that page in order to get the bundle sent to your email address. I also like to remind everyone that whenever you type your name in to get something, you always want to make sure that you're using a non-school email, because school districts do restrict emails like those from Pre-K Pages from coming to your inbox. And so just for ease of use and peace of mind and to cut down on customer service, we always recommend that you use your personal email, like a Gmail type of email address. So I hope that you got some wonderful activities that you can take back and use in your classroom right away to help set you and your students up for success this year. And until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin, onward and upward. If you think these videos are valuable, you have got to come check out the Teaching Trailblazers program. Teaching Trailblazers is the place for teachers like you to get the professional development resources and support you need to thrive. It's where you can learn relevant, life-changing best practices with professional development created specifically around the challenges early childhood teachers face. It's where you can get access to a complete research-based pre-K curriculum that you can use either to supplement your existing curriculum or use on its own to get 100% of your students kindergarten ready by the end of the year. And it's where you can hang out and connect over all things early childhood with other teachers just like you and me. It's my favorite place on earth, and it will change your teacher life, I guarantee it. Come join us at teachingtrailblazers.com to get more information and apply today. That's teachingtrailblazers.com. I can't wait to see you there.